Hello and welcome to the Sober Bartender podcast, the show where we recover from life. I'm your host, Brandy Kelly. Today, I have a guest for you, which hasn't happened in a long time, so super excited to have Derek Januszweski here. He is the founder and lead pastor at Pachamama Sanctuary. Welcome, Derek.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yes, so I'm super excited to have you here. Derek, you're also in recovery.
I am.
Not just from substances, but likely from life.
Yeah, I'm in recovery from myself.
Perfect. I met a gal and she said that I had her on the show and she said, I'm not recovering from life because life is just fine the way it is. I'm really recovering from my separation from God.
Yeah.
You identify with that?
For sure. In certain aspects, absolutely. Absolutely.
So you are the founder and the lead pastor of this sanctuary. And I've done a little research, like I've just read up what I could, but tell us what it is and what you do.
Yeah. So Pachamama Sanctuary is an ayahuasca church. Ayahuasca is a plant medicine that it comes from brewing two plants together from South America. They've been using it for thousands of years. And when it's brewed together in a very specific way, it creates a mystical spiritual experience. And it allows us to go very deep into our subconscious mind in an emotional way instead of a logical way. So some of the ego that's created that creates blockages in our subconscious mind, it's not there because that part of our ego kind of gets dissolved to a point. And so we host weekend retreats, and we have all kinds of inner work going on, lots of tears and laughter and purging of energies and all that kind of stuff. I don't serve medicine. I bring in shamans for that. I do all of the other stuff, support people emotionally and help with their aftercare and all that.
That's amazing. I definitely have heard about ayahuasca for years, been curious for years, but not enough to actually take the dive. So I was super excited just to get together with you and hear about what you guys are doing. You're in Maine, right?
Right. Yeah, we're just outside Portland.
So I feel like you don't become a founder and a lead pastor just out of the blue. So where did you first come, I guess, in contact with the medicine? And then how did this unfold for you to start this journey?
Yeah. Well, so I came to the medicine in 2017. I started sitting at a place called Soul Quest down in Orlando, Florida. And I went there because I was having a really hard time after 3 years in and out of the rooms of 12-step programs and not really getting any relief. As a matter of fact, every time I went to a meeting, I felt worse and like I was worse white knuckling when I left. And I really couldn't put together very much sober time. I was disappointing everybody, hurting everybody around me. And I was desperate, so I went and sat with the medicine down in Florida, in Orlando. I was about an hour and a half from my house. It worked out real well. From there, I got relief, like total relief, for about 45 days. It didn't last, so I went back and got the same kind of effect. The third time I went back, I just decided to not leave. I just volunteered for a good year. I was doing a lot of, washing out purge buckets. And, after a year of that, the church took a vacation and I was left without my program of sobriety, if you want to call it that, my support system. So I relapsed and they fired me, and they did the right thing. How they fired me, I wish it could have been different, but maybe it was. I mean, everything's perfect, but I would have liked it to be a little bit different, but it is the way that it was. And so after that, an opportunity was given to me to organize a retreat up in New Hampshire by somebody who I had met at my very first ayahuasca retreat. And I resisted for a little while. And eventually I'm like, okay, I'll organize your retreat. I'll do one. And one led to two, led to four, led to moving to New Hampshire from Florida. And one thing led to another. And over the course of this time, I sat with the medicine a whole bunch over a long period of time. And it grew so fast and so big that it actually crushed me psychologically, emotionally, energetically. I had nothing left. And my cup was so incredibly empty that I relapsed again. That was in December of 21. And then I white knuckled for a little while, had a couple of other relapses until my mom died in June of 22. And June of 20, was that right? Yeah, June of 22. I went on a hard spiral. It was very, very off the rails. Checked into rehab in September of 22 and did 3 months and then moved into sober living. And that entire time I was working heavily on my sobriety. And then all of a sudden people just started coming forward and saying, how can we help? We need to get the sanctuary back open. So I put in place a large group of support for all these different things because I need to focus on my sobriety. I need to focus on my sobriety until at least I get through to the ninth step or something so I can be very, very balanced. And so these people came together and they're volunteering and they're putting in tons of hours and they're not getting paid and they're just supporting the sanctuary so that I can continue my sobriety journey and also still continue to just show up in the parts that I can give. And it just God's magic, God's grace, just all of a sudden here we have this beautiful place in Maine and a great group of people. And so, how did I get here? Crawling over broken glass through the gates of hell to get here.
Yeah.
That's how I got here.
Yeah. I totally get that. We don't ever go to the extremes to take back our life unless we've been to the absolute depths of our despair. So, you entered recovery in 2017.
I entered recovery in 2014.
But my question was more so was this just an adulthood addiction thing, or did this stem from the beginning as most of ours do?
Oh, so I didn't start drinking until I got to college. I smoked a little bit of pot in high school. I drank a little bit, but I didn't actually start drinking and smoking and taking psychedelics until I got to college. Then I flunked out in a year. It took me straight to down, and then I went down to Florida, not really realizing that there was something wrong with me at that point. I can look back and see it, but that's where I was introduced to some of the dry goods, and I had a little taste of that and jumped out of it before it got bad. Got married, had kids, and it was a alcoholic marriage. We would drink on the weekends, though. We wouldn't drink during the week. We saved the week. The weekdays were for pot, and the weekends were for heavy drinking.
Balance.
Yeah, right, balance. When I look back, when I think that my disease really started to develop heavily was around the age of 29. I became very obsessive with a lot of things all at once. Buying houses, so about 12 of them in a year to rent them out. Playing poker. I was running 2 poker games and playing poker professionally, flying back and forth to Las Vegas, and building a home-based business, an Amway type business. And so I was in the office for about 80 to 90 hours a week, and then I was running 2 all-night poker games. And And so I was completely obsessed with like all of that, right? And I was also fixing up the apartments and collecting rents and completely disconnected from my family, you know. But my obsessions were like extreme. And so I had three computers set up at the same time. I had one that had I had two that had uh eight, like four hands of poker on each screen. So I was playing eight hands of poker at the same time that I was playing a video game, and then I had a list of calls in front of me for my business. So at all times I was playing a video game, eight hands of poker, and making phone calls for like 10 to 12 hours a day, you know? And then once I stopped being able to make calls, which happened at midnight because I could call up until 9 o'clock West Coast time, then I would usually play video games or play poker until 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. Yeah. That was
Totally
when the obsession.
disconnected from anything internal.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. Yeah. So that's when the obsession, like, oh, I can see where it went. It like really leveled up. And so of course the marriage dissolved. It looked like, her going out drinking with her friends and toxic arguments, but like it was really that, you know what I mean? Like my obsession really dissolved the marriage. Um, and then so I moved out, and that's when a friend of mine came and dropped a big bag of dry goods on the table and said, "This will make you feel better." And that started about a 15-year run with mostly cocaine.
I've been that friend before, unfortunately, so I get it. You use the tools that you think are helping you to help your friends in need and then drag them down with you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Oh, that's intense.
It
It's a
got
lot.
very
And
intense.
I totally relate to just that, doing all of the things, but there's nothing internal. Like there's no connection there. It's all disconnection. It's all external.
Mm-hmm.
And
All of it.
that makes a lot of sense of why like running a sanctuary or being involved, like doing your initial service at the sanctuary made so much sense, because it was the complete opposite to where you could just immerse yourself in connection.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, it was so refreshing to be able to connect with other human beings and be learning and figuring things out again, from being devoid of any connection with the outside world to being saturated by it. Once I got to the sanctuary, it became a crutch, while it was very positive and healthy in many ways. um just like any good alcoholic, I turned something good against me. you know
Yeah. Because although it's probably, I mean, I can see the benefits in other people, it gets this amazing thing for you. It's not necessarily a replacement for recovery, for like, because the 12 steps saved my life, and now I've gone in different directions, but at the core of my recovery is the steps. It's
Mhm.
that foundation that was laid that I had to rebuild my life on top of, and nothing else
Absolutely.
necessarily could replace that.
Absolutely. I was, like I said earlier, I was using volunteering and working at the church as a crutch,
Yeah.
right? I was using it to keep me sober. And so if you take that away, what did I have? I had a distraction, you know. Now I want to separate that from drinking the medicine. The medicine was very good for me. It helped me learn who I am. It actually helped me so much with my four step, because I can be extremely honest, because I can be honest with myself, because I can see all these things, because I've seen it in the medicine, and I'm no longer afraid of saying, yeah, I was selfish about this, or I lied about that. Um the self um awareness that comes with sitting with medicine is extreme. It's extreme, you know. So I want to separate the medicine work from the
Mhm.
volunteering work. The volunteering work and the working at the church was what I was using as a crutch and abusing.
That
You
makes
know,
sense.
they are different.
Yeah, that makes sense. Um, I just know that initially when I first got sober, I just was looking for any and all activities outside of myself. So I just identified with that whole just diving headfirst into anything I could do besides sit with me. But the medicine aspect, so you said it actually removes those blockages to where you're not afraid to see those things. It actually opens up the door to them, right? Because I still have things that show up and I'm like, oh, that did happen.
It's less about, being afraid, but it's more about avoiding, right? So the ego like says, oh, it says in the book, pride says you don't need to go that way, and ego says you dare not go that way, or whatever. Like, I don't know if that's the exact quote, but it's something like that, right? It takes the ability away. It takes our ability to not look in the mirror away from us. We are forced to look at it, whether we're afraid to or not. We don't have a choice. You look it puts you in a place where you have to look right in the mirror.
I think maybe that's why I haven't gone yet.
Yeah. Yeah, I see the ego as this sort of living, alive, being, and when you see it, it dies, and so it wants to do everything that it can to hide from sight. It's gonna a new ego is gonna create itself, because we can't live without ego. But parts of the ego that are not really effective parts of ourselves, uh they don't want to be seen because they'll die, and it wants to live just like any other living being.
So something that I'm curious about, you said that like basically as soon as you started, like you didn't drink. So it wasn't like I started drinking when I was 8. I mean, not regularly, but I started partying at 12, but you really didn't. It's not like you grew up drinking and partying, but once you did, it was there. So can you tell me what you've discovered about that? Like, would you say that's, is it childhood abuse? Is there trauma?
Hmm. Yeah. So yeah, I was a social drinker. Although once I progressed, the drinking brings me straight to cocaine. That's the thing that's the thing that'll kill me, right? So the first drink will kill me because, well, I'll go out and like kill myself with dry goods. Um, yeah, I mean, I'm a survivor of tremendous childhood abuse. I was born. My dad didn't even show up to the hospital. Um, I my dad pretty much abandoned me until high school, and even then, when I moved in with him after he stopped drinking, I would say got sober, but I'm not so sure he got sober. He just stopped drinking and went to AA. I see a big difference in that. So he just wasn't around, and that was really, looking back and doing all this work, I'm realizing how much pain that caused me. And my mom would leave me at home while she was at the bar all the time from the age of like 4 or 5. And she'd be out until like 2 o'clock in the morning. And when she was home, she was either had a party, or she was alone and belligerent drunk and whipping up on me, or sometimes she got a babysitter, and the babysitter was raping me. And that all went on for about 5 years, into from like 5 to 10. And then I moved to Florida, and the same thing happened again. New babysitter, same result. She would be gone. And these are really rough neighborhoods. West Springfield, like the hard part of West Springfield, and some of the most dangerous parts of Jacksonville, Florida, like really, really dangerous parts. So, it's so between the neglect, or the abandonment from my father, and my mom, you know, I think that I was traumatized less by my mother, because even though she appeared to hate me, at least she had feelings about me. My father just doesn't actually care whether he has a relationship with me, and I'm 47, he still doesn't. Um and so, growing up, getting beat up by the people around me because like by my peers because I didn't fit in West Springfield. I was the only white kid. I didn't fit in Jacksonville. I was the only white kid. I didn't fit in Ponte Vedra. I was really poor, and those were all rich kids. I didn't fit in Newburyport, Massachusetts, because I was like the new kid, and they were all like they all grew up together. And so it just um the isolation, the lack of ability to connect with another human being, um, made the alcohol and the social drinking great. It made me be able to, communicate better. Uh, but it wasn't until the cocaine came into the picture that I actually felt good. I didn't realize I always felt awful. So I was sort of numb to that awful feeling until eventually once I took something that like made me feel good, that gave me a dopamine rush, like that I got to feel like things that are sort of in the neighborhood of joy and elation and pride and whatever. um that's what I had been missing my whole life, and as soon as I felt that, I couldn't get enough.
Yeah. Yeah. And then the idea of not having those things is unfathomable, right?
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah, because like when I felt horrible, but I didn't know it, which was numb, which was baseline to me, and then I felt great because of, getting high. As soon as I came back to normal, now I knew that felt awful, and I had to have more right now. And I emptied bank accounts, I sold houses. I went from owning 12 houses to couch surfing and trap houses within like 2 years.
Yeah. I did some couch surfing. I sold some houses, but not 12. Like that's intense.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, I had everything that I could want. I had like plenty of money. It all went to zero. I went to be below zero, obviously. I mean,
Yeah.
it goes.
And none of those external things actually did the trick. So when
No.
you finally did find something that worked, so did the medicine like become an initial relief to where like some of that, once you took all the substances out and are you're getting sober and then you're taking the medicine, like what effect does that have on the trauma and on the abuse? Is there any?
Yeah, immediately I went from like either having to get high all day or sleeping almost all day, for months and months. And I sat with a medicine once, and well, twice, one weekend, two ceremonies.
Mhm.
Um, by Monday morning, I was up at the beach with a book in my hand and a coffee and watching the sunrise immediately. And it was like that for about 45 days, about a month and a half. It was instant relief. It was balance. It was hope that life was going to be able to be all right. It was, and it gave me like the deep desire to actually quit. And I couldn't hold on. I had so much trauma in my past. I didn't realize. I thought that like this magical juice was going to fix me. I thought it fixed me. The reality is that I wasn't actually doing any of the work, the daily practices, the prayer, the meditation. Um, and I didn't even know what integration was at that point. Integration is the key to working with plant medicines. Um, and so that's why it came back, and I needed a lot more work than, you know 12 hours of medicine work was going to solve. I had no idea. um I mean, I'm still digging out my shadow stuff now. you know
I remember at a low point, a friend had gone to Peru and he was gone for 10 days and he took the medicine and he came back and, I wasn't drinking every morning, but I was like, a maintenance drinker. I was never just like a weekend drinker. I was like, we're going to start as soon as we can start and we're going to go no matter what it takes, as long as we can go. But when he came back and he was saying, I really think that you should look into this. I really think that this will help you. And so seed was planted in my head that like that could fix me because I was broken and, XYZ. But from what I've just learned from talking to people, like you use the word integration, like it's not just that, but it's such a powerful piece that can help just open. I'm trying to think of the word just escaped me, but just to open you up to be able to do that work.
It does. Like I said earlier, it's an emotional journey inside the subconscious mind. These places where we have already created stories that we have set in stone, and that disallows us from me being able to see more aspects of it. So me doing this work has allowed me to come to grips with the fact that my mom was the product of rape, was beat up by multiple her boyfriends, or her mother's boyfriends and husbands. She was raped by her mother's husband twice, two different husbands. She was basically latchkey and left alone because her mom was like an alcoholic and would whip up on her, and her brother would whip up on her. And so, she had no clue how to be a parent. It allowed me to really like look at that resentment on my fourth step and realize she didn't have a choice. She didn't drink because she loved alcohol more than me. She drank because she didn't have a choice. And it allowed me to see that and actually see that aspect in the medicine before I even wrote it on my fourth step. And those kind of things where I was blocked from seeing the whole picture. I was just consumed by self and like victim mentality, and it allowed for compassion and empathy to enter, despite how much punishment that she put me through.
And that's so powerful because, just a normal person would say, well, you have every right to be hurt. But when we're in that victimhood, we stay sick. So that's beautiful and amazing that you were able to see that before you even sat down to do the work, because she gave you exactly what she knew how to give, but that was absolutely horrible.
Yeah. She didn't have any other options. She didn't have any other skill sets. She didn't want to treat me that way. She didn't. I know she didn't. So that's what the medicine did for me, but in a whole bunch of different subjects, but like seeing that in the medicine and then writing it down, journaling about it, sitting with that emotion, allowing all of the anger and resentment to wash through for the compassion to flush in, and then to be able to, actually like say some prayers about it and flip the script. Because as well as I do that, as an alcoholic, I don't have the luxury of justified anger anymore.
No rationalization or justification. No.
Mm-mm. Mm-mm.
So you were given that gift, and now you're able to share that gift with other people with your sanctuary.
Yes.
So are you able to extend that to people in recovery?
Yes. Yep. Yeah. I've offered to sponsor some guys that have come here when I get to that point, when my sponsor gives me the go ahead. Until then, I'm turning them over to various people that I trust very much. But I work with them one-on-one. I'll have conversations with them. And we just had a men's sober weekend here this past weekend. We had 9 guys here, like, doing breath work and crying and no medicine, just, sober meetings and stuff like that. I obviously have a very large passion about helping addicts because I am one, and I do have people that are coming. I'm actually developing an individual or a specific program for people in recovery, whether they're trying to get sober or they've been sober for a certain amount of time. Plugging them in with a recovery coach and an integration coach that's trauma informed, that are both trauma informed and understanding of the medicine, the integration work, and sobriety. Putting the two of those together so that anybody that comes in can actually get the support they need. And if people are broke because they ran through their bank account and they're at their wits end and they've gone in the merry-go-round in and out of the rooms, and they just don't like, to just not getting it, they've been to rehabs and all of that, and they've actually made attempts, that they're showing willingness, just like there's that blockage and they don't have the money, I let them come and sit for either a reduced rate or for free, provided they're gonna do a couple of things later, and it has nothing to do with paying us back or anything like that. It has to do with being of service to their community. We make an agreement that they're gonna make up the energy exchange by being of service to their community back home. Because I just want to help. I just want to help, especially addicts.
That's huge, because there is that block a lot of times to where there are these amazing things that can help us, but there is just that, that we destroy our finances in our addiction most of the time. So the fact that you're developing a path for people to still have access to that is amazing. I was curious how that worked, because I know I had a sponsor in Vegas that said any kind of psychedelic, any kind of plant medicine is a no-go for 12-step recovery.
Well, the AA preamble and the third tradition say that the only requirement for AA membership is the desire to stop drinking.
Yeah.
It has no opinion on outside matters. This is an outside matter. This is a spiritual matter, and how a person gets to their spirituality is different. Now, I would argue that probably, nobody's gonna, connect with God smoking crack. You know what I mean? So that's probably not a good spiritual experience, but I think that it is a separation of education. And some of that's probably going to come along with the research that's being done by Johns Hopkins and MAPS and these other large organizations that are studying this, because it's not that it doesn't work. I mean, Bill W. sat with LSD for like 5 years. The belladonna, that white light moment, that was something similar to ayahuasca. I'm not so sure it wasn't ayahuasca or something similar. It's shrouded a little bit, I think, and I think that's a good thing. Because I don't want people like reading the book and running out to go and like start taking psychedelics early in their recovery. I think that's a really bad idea. I think that it should be very, very specific and selective in a conversation with your sponsor. And if you feel extremely called to something like this, then it should go through the pathway of getting the okay from your sponsor. And if you're running into a brick wall in terms of like, getting the okay from your sponsor, then I think that you should look within and understand why you are trying to push through that brick wall. Not like, how do I convince my sponsor to do what I want them to do? Because if you're trusting them with your prior program of recovery, then trust them with your program of recovery.
Yeah. Yep. And that was a question that I had, was obviously it's not for everyone, but you kind of just gave a great explanation of who in recovery it would be for and not for.
Yeah. I'm willing to talk to anybody's sponsor, because if the education piece is the piece that's missing, but I'm guessing that, like, 75-year-old guys that have 35 years in sobriety are probably not going to co-sign it. But who knows? I mean, the world is changing, and there is pieces that this could be. It might be easier to be a consideration if you're really having a relapse problem.
Yeah. I will say I was surprised to find out that you are in 12-step recovery. I guess I just made the assumption that you were delving anew. So it's really neat to hear the integration of recovery and medicine. Because I've talked to people here in Texas that are, they're on different boards and pushing for psychedelic assisted recovery. Not the same thing necessarily, but just going like the legal way through doctors, through research to see how these things can help the trauma behind the chronic relapses and the just the repeated cycle of abuse.
Yeah. There's infinite paths to the light. Every individual, like, yes, I'm a run-of-the-mill drunk. Also, I have to find my own path to recovery with guidance. So it's a combination of those two things, so each person, there's very powerful tools psychedelics are, and there's a lot of like solid evidence that these are legitimately helping people. I mean, there's ibogaine is another medicine that's, I don't understand why this isn't being just used right now while they do the testing. It's got a 95% cure rate for opiate addiction, permanent cure rate with no withdrawals after one treatment. Like 95% cure rate after one treatment with no withdrawals. They don't even have to detox off of this stuff and feel like crap for a week. Like,
it makes you wonder if it's just more profitable for people to stay sick.
well, of course. I mean, there's
We know
definitely
that.
more. Yeah, there's going to rehab. They charge $1,000 a day for 90 days while I was in rehab to the state for the treatment. And when they're running them through, the state's getting all this funding, and there's a bunch of people with their hands in the cookie jar. Yeah, there's no profit in the cure. No profit in the cure. But I don't think that's the whole picture. I have more of a optimistic view than thinking that it's just these old guys sitting around with cigars and all the money pounding their fists on the table, figuring out how to keep everybody down. I don't have that worldview. Do I think that there's people that are working in their own best interest? Yeah. Yeah. And I also think that there's enough compassionate people and enough of an awakening that's happening now that some of these things are going to become available a lot faster than they would have 30 years ago because of the stranglehold that the the select few had on the world. Where a lot of people are waking up and becoming aware of some of these misalignments, and the more like shadows they disappear when you shine the light on them, and enough people wake up, enough people like stand up and say, no, this is not okay. Eventually they're going to be afraid of losing their positions in those big houses in Washington, and they're going to have to represent their constituents versus their own special interests, or else they're going to be gone.
Yeah.
Sorry for the
No, I
diversion there.
appreciate it, because I do still have a lot of black and white thinking, and I do, I just start thinking like the only explanation for why these things that can help so many people must be XYZ, and that's not necessarily the case, because like there are, it is possible for you guys to practice because it's not a psychedelic experience. It's actually I'll let you fill in the blank there.
Yeah, we are a religious organization. It is a spiritual, we're a religious organization.
Right.
And the medicine creates a spiritual, mystical experience. And if a lot of this is disconnection with God, like there's infinite paths to the light. You can do it with yoga, meditation, prayer, Christianity. You can do it with a million different things. There also happens to be some like super highways that like are really effective. Christianity, I think, is one of them. I mean, I'm not a Christian, but I certainly love Jesus and the things that he says. And, when I read the things that he says, I understand more about like how I want to be. And that's some more connection with my inner spirit, right? Like that's a super highway for, for connection with God and connection with self.
Yeah.
This is another one. Yoga is another big one. Meditation is another big one. These are super highways.
Yeah. I learned in AA to look, it says to look for where religious people are right. And once I started looking for where each of these things were right, it like opened it up to where I loved all of it. And I was like, I love that you believe that and what's true in that for me. And it did open up the world.
Yeah. Be quick to see where religious people are right. Make use of what they have to offer. Page 87.
Yeah. I love it. So is there I mean, this is a spiritual experience that you're offering in a weekend setting, but then I mean, like for people that aren't necessarily in Maine, right? So if they went to like a weekend retreat, is there still like the opportunity to like, is there access to the integration to like make this, or would that be more beneficial just for someone who's local to where you're at?
I host a weekly integration call every Tuesday.
Mhm.
So every Tuesday evening, it's an open call. We have anywhere from 20 people to 100 people on the call, and we all support each other. And the calls go for an hour to 2 hours, just depending on what people have to say. And we work together, and we support each other, and we hold each other accountable, and call each other on our stuff. And so the integration is open to literally anybody that's ever sat with plant medicines or are considering sitting with plant medicines. I'm not really excited about people coming to just be like a spectator.
Mm.
But hopefully people have enough respect for that. But if you went to an ayahuasca ceremony or a psilocybin ceremony in Wisconsin and there's no integration, just join our calls. Just join our calls, and it's there's no cost ever. They're free calls, and they're going to go on as long as the church is open. Even when the church was closed last year, while we were looking for a new place, those calls still continued.
How challenging was that?
I mean, people. A couple of people picked up and carried the ball while I was tucked away and getting help until I was able to start doing it myself. Um, it was I mean, it wasn't hard because I was like, if the call falls apart, it falls apart. I got to do this,
Yeah.
So I didn't allow it to be hard. But God took care of it. God handled it. You know, he's got a pretty good track record.
And then you had a place to be and serve and do when you were ready. It wasn't even like, we can't do this without you. It was like, okay, this is here when you're able to come into it.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It was a miracle how we were able to get this location too. I mean, just miracle after miracle. I can't even. But 4 investors showed up with a total between the 4 of them of let's see, like if you don't include the loan on the house, if you don't include that, like $270,000 they gave to an addict in rehab. In a
If that's
place, you
not
know
a
what I
miracle.
mean? Yeah. They believe in this so much, and they believe in me, and they believe in the medicine, and they trust the medicine, and they're part of a weekly group we meet so that they can support with like helping me to make the right decisions and keeping everything on track. But yeah, they showed up like angels one after another, and then yeah, I mean, it's just a miracle that we're in this place. And it's gorgeous. This place, we've got 40 private acres. There's a mile of frontage on a river right out back in the backyard. And it's just tremendous here. It's just absolutely tremendous here.
Yeah, I've showed it to my network of friends here that I thought would be interested when we booked our call together, and they were like, "Oh yeah, we need to go there." It's gorgeous. So I will include a link to your site so people can just see what you're talking about, because it looks amazing. And I do want to tell you, I believe in you. Like, we just met, but just talking to you and just hearing what you've been through, and you have just this peace about you, and just this love and this compassion that just comes through. And I feel like you said, it's just from crawling over broken glass through the gates of hell, basically, and making it to the other side, and then dedicating your life to sharing the gifts that you've found.
Yeah.
So
I don't think anything brings me greater joy than to hear. And I talk about this all the time, right? Friday is like Christmas Eve, and every Friday of retreat is like Christmas Eve, right? Everybody's coming in, their heads are down, they're nervous, they're looking around, they're freaked out about what's about to happen, et cetera, right? And they're just not, they're not sure what's going to happen. And then Sunday, you've got them like just beaming with love and tears pouring out of their eyes when they're talking about, like their stepfather, who like they came in here so mad at, and they're just talking about how like these massive turnarounds. And then I get pulled aside on Sunday and was like, yeah, like, thank you so much. There's a gun sitting on my nightstand that I was going to use if this didn't work. And I'm like, not like, there's kids who have called me and thanked me because of how much this helped their parents. And literally, like, nothing gives me greater joy. It's not even work. Like, I just get up and I do things so that can happen. I love it so much. Like, I can't imagine doing anything else.
So what is it that you would want anyone out there struggling to know, be it with alcoholism, be it with life, be it with themselves? What would you want to tell people that are listening?
No matter what you think, you matter. You matter. And there is help. There's a lot of people and a lot of resources that want to help, and asking for help is strength, not weakness. I had to ask for help. I was suffering. I was caught. I was in a wash cycle. I was right. I was writing, mentally writing my suicide note, because I was going to kill myself the day that somebody showed up to bring me to rehab. Um, it doesn't matter how far down the down the what is it? How far down the ladder you've gone. It doesn't matter how far down your bottom is right now. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. You do matter, you know. And there is help. There is a different way. And as scary as it is, as hard as it might seem, uh, it all is worth it. It all is worth it. The obsession will be lifted. Um, and people, their whole life is wrapped around their passion and joy for helping you. Like, they want to help you more than they want to breathe. They want to help you more than they want to eat food. They love it. And so showing up so that they can actually fulfill their dharma, their like life purpose, will make them happy. Will make them happy, and your family too. You matter.
That's perfectly said. And that is the purpose of this podcast, is just to let people know that they matter, that they are not alone. We've been there. We all have a different experience, but we somehow still know what the other one is talking about, despite a totally different life cycle. That hopelessness and that pain, we've felt it too. And we get to live a life that, it's not just constant pain. There are hard days and there are good days, but none of them are as bad as it was. And there is a life on the other side of what you're experiencing right now. So Derek, it's been an absolute pleasure. I really appreciate you coming on here, you talking to us, sharing what you're doing. I do want to get your links so that I can include those in the show notes so that people can get access to you and hopefully reach out and get something going.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Yeah, thank you very much. Thanks for having me. This was great. I love conversations like this.
Yes, it's my pleasure. And for those of you listening, if there's any questions that you have, feel free to reach out to me at the Sober Bartender Podcast on Instagram, on YouTube at the Sober Bartender, or on Facebook in the Sober Bartender Facebook group. If you have any questions for Derek, I will include his contact info. So please reach out. He's putting the hand out there. Feel free to reach out and grab onto that. Give him a call. Hop on that
Call
Tuesday
me,
call.
literally. And you can actually, I'm going to leave my number. You can literally call me if you're struggling or if you just want to talk. I'm going to leave my number. You can reach me on. Call me.
Thank you so much. All right.